Hello and welcome to the Absentia DVD Producer's Commentary Track. My name's Morgan Peter Brown. I'm one of the producers of this film, and I also play Daniel Riley.
I am Mike Flanagan, writer-director, and also one of the producers of the film.
I'm Joe Wicker, one of the producers on the film.
This is Justin Gordon. I play Detective Lonergan, and I produce the film.
And one of the things that we're trying to do with this commentary, there's also on this disc a cast commentary that you may or may not have listened to. We are hoping to accomplish with this commentary something that's kind of a useful bit of information about what it's like to produce a film on a micro budget. And that's something everybody in this room can definitely speak to. So hopefully, that's what we're going to aim for anyway, but who knows? We will do our best.
We can't guarantee that we won't go off on tangents every now and then.
We can guarantee that we will, most likely.
There's the title.
Probably
Absentia.
definitely going to happen.
Yeah. Do we want to start maybe talking about the origin of the project and the origin of the company?
Sure. In the fall of 2009, I and Justin here to my right started deciding wanted to form our own production company as actors working in Los Angeles and struggling, as most actors do, and wanting to seek out and produce our own stuff. And we knew a lot of talented people, one of them being Mike Flanagan. And not unbeknownst to us at the same time, Mike was kind of hatching the idea for something, to do something with all these talented actor friends that he has and with some camera equipment that he had. And then in January or February, I think, of 2010, Mike and I and Miss Courtney Bell, who's been a friend of mine for a long time, and my fiance.
Well, you guys used to live together in D.C.
That's right. Yeah, we've known each other since we were doing regional theater in Ithaca, New York in 2001.
Check that out.
Wow.
Yeah. And Mike pitched the idea for what eventually became Absentia to me over this dinner. And do we want to talk about the title of that pitch?
You know, if there's ever a place to talk about it, I think it's right here.
2 words, and partially in humor, but also in true seriousness, those 2 words were troll rape.
First of all, I can't believe you went for the troll rape thing.
I thought we were going to talk about the
So much
original
for our
title.
serious,
As we
serious
all remember,
informative
is
commentary track.
Wrinkle. That was the original title.
Yes, the original title was.
that's right.
But the original pitch was, Morgan, I've got 2 words that are going to change your life. Troll rape. This is actually true.
Oh my god.
So we've completely, of course, now just blown our shot of being
Taken
seriously.
seriously.
Yeah.
Thanks for
We're
taking it
gonna go with
That
that.
didn't last long. 3 minutes in.
Yeah.
Credibility out the window.
But no, that was kind of, and that was after. It became a running gag throughout the production process, of course. But
Right.
I'd started working on the story because I live across the street from that tunnel that you see, and we talk about this a lot in the other track too. But, so I had the idea to do a horror movie involving the tunnel, and it was my younger brother who plays Jamie Lambert in the movie. You just saw him in there going a wide shot. Who first pitched to Billy Grove's gruff angle of it, that it was, for lack of a better word, it was a tunnel troll. We of course knew immediately we could never ever use the word troll.
Anytime you
Anytime,
said
ever.
the word, it was
And
snicker.
exactly,
Troll
but
2 made sure of that.
yeah. But it made for some fun, kind of getting into it. But
Well, and all joking aside, I mean, it was when we started to talk about the legends of everything the world over about people being spirited away and unspeakable horrors done to them, and Mike pitched, at the same time he's pitching the film, pitched me on this character of Daniel. As someone who was, some really awful things were done to for a very long period of time.
And in the Scandinavian Vinderfolk troll lore, which is mentioned later in the movie, the actual mythology was that these creatures would just take people away. They'd just spirit them away, usually into the woods. And the people would show up 2 decades later. And when they resurface, they showed signs of significant physical abuse, sexual abuse, and that was part of the legend. That was part of the thing that really freaked me out about it.
And it is a very visceral, I mean, as funny a term as it has become amongst us, it's a very visceral gut reaction thing of, oh God, and
Well, yeah. I mean, it's horrifying to think that anything could snatch you out of the darkness and take you away, and just basically your body becomes
You're sure it doesn't violate the terms of
a tool for them.
Well, it's worse. It's in a way, it's worse than just being killed by something. Right?
Exactly.
It's kept alive for years.
I'm really glad.
and what I love about the script and the story that the film eventually became is it's that combination of that mystical folklore type aspect along with the very practical real world. What do you do when someone just goes missing? Happens all the time. I mean, and what happens to the people left behind?
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
Even after the whole.
Well, and what you're seeing right now is actually this is our first day of production, our first night of production.
That's
we
right.
started the first half of the shoot was all night for night.
It was shot over 15 days in June and July of 2010.
What was
Yep.
it with some random
And
hottie? I don't
and we
know,
started with
Billboard,
6
gardener?
days of night shoots was our first week, and it was pretty ambitious. And by the end of that week, I think we were all pretty,
Fuck him
you know,
anyway. I mean, if
Pretty destroyed.
on a knife's edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty destroyed.
Well, I mean, it's insane to me because I'm getting ready to go into a production where 15 days is just one location for an entire shoot, and the fact that the entire movie was shot in 15 days
Basically looks the
is
same
just
since I was
mind-boggling.
here last.
Yeah.
God, was that?
And that's not, I don't think that's an experience anyone's
It was
anxious
right
to
before you took off.
to
so
recreate
Oh, you took your
at
wedding
any time.
pictures
I mean,
down.
that's
No.
it's
I didn't
rough.
want to change anything right at first.
But
Just
yeah, so
in case
we
you
talked about the
walked in one
project
day.
as kind of a small,
later on, I
no
don't wanna
budget,
change things in
even
case-
potentially like a weekend kind of thing, natural light, and just do it when we could. And it evolved very quickly. And one of the things that made it really take off, and Justin can talk about this in
Death
good
in
detail, is
I know, it sounds
Kickstarter.
really just...
Right,
I knew there was going to be paperwork. I just didn't realize.
Morgan mentioned briefly that, he came to me in the fall of 2009 with this idea for this company, Fallback Plan, where we, a couple of, working actors in Los Angeles,
The paperwork
basically
goes
a
in,
dot
and
in a
that
herd
with
of
the
millions,
police statements,
we're
they'll
trying
issue a death
to make our own
certificate,
path,
which
and
then I give that to the insurance
wanted to create our
companies
own
and
projects, and,
creditors,
Mike,
but it affects a lot,
Mike had
like
pitched
car
Absentia
insurance,
at the time. It was called
registration,
Wrinkle.
life
Pitched it to
insurance,
Morgan,
it's 401k.
and
They didn't think that maybe
A
after
Wrinkle in
7
Time.
years-
And we'll get to that later. But
Once you declare someone,
but no, yeah. So this project was looming, and it was.
missing, dead.
It basically evolved from
Back
let's
from that one.
shoot this project on weekends
I
and
think
have
it
something
waits
fun to
a
do
while,
to,
something
well, why don't we just
Yeah,
actually make the movie?
Yeah, and make
So
it.
the posters.
And it was also accelerated
Yeah.
too because
I printed
Courtney
out so
Bell,
many, and it
you can
was
see on the
just
right
habit to
there,
kinda
we
go
found
out
it
and change 'em
was
out.
pregnant,
And I figured rather than watch 'em
that
rot
meant
off the trees and
essentially
poles,
because
you
she'd
know,
already
put up
been
no
cast in the
ads.
film. The
Just
cast was
last
kind of put
it
together
around.
before the script was written,
Yeah.
and that accelerated our shooting timetable, which meant that we had to cram
Considerably.
fundraising, writing, and all the prep into essentially like 2 months.
Yeah. So and that's when the fundraising comes up, and
My
as
face
I-
is on fire, by the way.
Yeah, Morgan's face is on fire right now, so enjoy that. No, but when it comes to to funding a movie, like I said before, Morgan and I are struggling actors. We have no money. How do you raise money to start a film?
It's the eternal question.
Right, exactly. How do you get the money to make the movie? I am a voracious tweeter, I guess you would call it. I'm on Twitter all the time. I tweet multiple times every day.
He's going to groups.
We understand, Congressman.
Yeah, I'm going to groups for it. But anyway, one morning on Twitter,
Wanders off.
I wake up, I check Twitter, see what's going on, and the author Neil Gaiman, who I'm a big fan of because I'm a huge Batman fan, and he wrote an arc for
I
DC
had a million of them.
called Whatever Happened to the
Yeah, he
Cape
was an NSA
Crusade.
agent.
Yeah, sorry, I can't talk.
Couldn't tell us
Cape
what he did for a living.
Crusader. Thank you. Which basically was an alternate
Then his cover
universe
got
when
blown,
what happens if
it's like
Batman dies and there's a funeral. But anyway, Neil Gaiman is awesome.
All the time.
And he mentioned that that was a rant.
It's all-
Anyway,
it's just
he
money.
mentioned that he was funding a project on this website called Kickstarter.
Kidnapping.
Any second now, we're going to be seeing Mike Flanagan's very, very quick cameo.
Oh yes, let's pause for a minute.
Oh yeah. Annie. And Miriam.
Flanagan.
Doing what he loves best, which is
Zipping Morgan into a body bag.
Yeah, basically anytime Mike can abuse Morgan, he's happy.
Ending Morgan.
Hey. So anyway, Neil Gaiman posts on Twitter that he is backing this project. It's a short film called Titania, which is based on Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's this fantastical world where we follow Titania.
You cleaned up so well.
Anyway, Gaiman's pushing it on Twitter or on Kickstarter, this site, and I was like, what's Kickstarter? So I log on and I find Kickstarter, and I realize it's a crowdfunding website where creative individuals, be they filmmakers, authors, cooks, anybody who has a creative project can go on and say, we are trying to raise money to make this happen.
And at the time we found it was March or April of 2010. It was still in beta testing,
early.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was in the early stages, and so I saw that a film was being funded through Kickstarter, and so I pitched this idea to Mike, and I was essentially like, hey, we offer prizes and rewards to people for specific dollar amounts, and they pledge these dollar amounts, and if we meet a goal, our goal I think was pretty, for a film, a modest $15,000 for a feature film. That's all we wanted to raise to make the movie. I was like, and if we meet this goal, we get to keep the money.
Right.
And all we have to do is convince people to donate for specific prizes. Like you'll get a signed copy of a script, or you'll get a DVD screener when the film is released. Something along those lines. That would
I
entice
hated
people.
the idea.
Yeah, Mike hated the idea.
We were, at first, at best, skeptical. There was sort of does that make sense?
It was very dicey.
Yeah, well, and why wouldn't you be skeptical? I mean,
Sure,
you're going onto the internet to ask people to give you money.
Right.
Yeah, and you can only kind of go after your own friends and family and stuff like that for it, which was initially kind of uncomfortable. But we did it, and we ended up raising
3,000 and change.
Yeah.
And then went off from there and were able to pull in private investment to make up the rest of our budget.
Right. And as far as I know, I mean, there have been a lot of film projects on Kickstarter, some seeking finishing funds. There are a few documentaries up there. To the best of our knowledge, we're one of the first, if not the first, narrative feature to seek starting costs through Kickstarter and complete.
Yeah, to actually be completed and actually
There
have secured both domestic and international distribution.
And we're quick to say, I mean, that we are not a Kickstarter film. That seems to be thrown out there in a lot of articles. We owe a lot to Kickstarter. We're extremely grateful, and we wouldn't have been started without it.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's insane. You're going onto your own private social network and saying, hey, give us money to make a movie.
And at the same time, it achieves a lot in this day of Twitter and social networking and Facebook and everything. Where you can market yourself, you can market your own projects yourself before a marketing team ever gets a hold of it. Yeah. And it achieves a lot in that that's me.
This is Morgan talking to you right now.
This is my slightly elongated jaw.
Yeah, it's actually not too much of a stretch.
I had to go through that footage and remove his eyeballs and teeth frame by frame.
Yeah.
I remember
which
that.
was real fun.
Much less painful, though, than popping out my eyes and elongating my jaw, however.
Exactly.
Which Morgan could do. He's a very talented guy.
I did take classes.
We tried.
Yeah.
You seem way too human with
Right.
eyes and teeth.
Absolutely. But it
yeah, and back to Kickstarter.
We had 300 at the end of the day. When we had met our goal, we had 300 people already invested who had a vested interest in the completion of this project.
Ooh, can I jump in here for a second?
Yeah, please.
To talk about this shot, because people ask about this, and I think there's something for people who are looking to get shots like this on a low budget. I mean, our DP went on eBay and found I think a Chinese glide cam.
Yeah.
For $25.
Yeah, and you assemble it like Legos.
Yeah, and it snapped together, and you hold it like a baton, basically.
The film was shot on the Canon 5D. I'm not sure we've said that yet, which is
yes, that's
which
very
are fairly widely known now, but it looks like a still camera. It's a fairly small little apparatus.
Which means it can fit on top of this glide cam very easily.
Yeah.
And he just ran behind her. It was some of the more interesting parts of the film because it was like, okay, Katie, start running. And the camera starts running. Action, go. And we just wait for 5 minutes for him to come back.
Right.
And show us the footage. But yeah, like a lot of people were like, oh, did you have to rent, did you have to rent a lot of equipment to get some of those tracking shots? That's out of a car. It's out of a car driving.
We never used a dolly.
Yeah, never.
It was most of it was shoulder mounted or with a glide cam.
And yeah, I mean, you can get shots like that pretty easily in low tech, and not, having to spend a lot of money. And that's something I think can add production value to your film if you can't afford it. So definitely look into glide cams and Steadicam Junior rigs. You don't necessarily have to buy the really expensive one that they recommend. You can get decent ones online.
Well, with the different DSLR cameras, at the time when we decided to shoot Absentia on the Canon 5D, I mean, it was at the time still kind of a relatively uncommon method of shooting a film.
They'd just done the House season finale.
Yeah,
and they had just updated the camera so that it shot 24 frames a second. Also, that was a codec for the 5D that didn't exist.
Yeah, I believe
earlier that year.
One of the factors that convinced me as a producer to go forward and say yes, let's shoot on this camera was I had seen some test footage that was shot over a weekend at Lucas Ranch.
Yeah, they have a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah.
Doug Jones is a story worth telling.
Yeah.
How to get a name into your film. That's Doug Jones from, of course, Hellboy and Pan's Labyrinth.
Silver Surfer,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
Very well-known character actor.
Literally the nicest man you'll ever meet.
Yeah. But we approached him via email, which is not difficult to do. You can actually do that through his website.
Yeah.
And a lot I've since discovered have just contacted me on their website. I was shocked.
It is a growing thing with the new Hollywood. I mean, you have these studios limiting the amount of films they're doing, and yeah, there's a lot of TV work, but actors love to work at the end of the day, and nobody, and the good ones will take a look at things. I mean, if you have obviously having money and making sure it's a real thing helps. But at the end of the day, there are plenty of actors like Doug who will take a look at your project.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough we got Doug for a day.
Yeah.
And
Doug Jones Day
elevated the whole movie
Hi.
in a lot of ways by having his name on it. And he also does a beautiful job.
Yeah.
But
it's a beautiful job, and he's a beautiful guy.
Yeah.
And he'll tell people too.
Not the.
I've gotten to actually hang out with him a bit more since at film festivals and listen and talk to students who all say, how do we approach talent for our films? And he'll say, approach the talent you want always. Always approach. The worst they can do is say no.
Yeah.
Aim as high as you can. Find a way to get in contact with them directly and not necessarily through an agent or a manager. And if it's through, follow them on Twitter. A lot of them are on Twitter. Find them on Facebook. Do what you can. And if you aren't asking for a lot of their time and they like the script, they'll find a way to do it. Yeah. And I think that's amazing because for so long it just seemed like being able to approach actors was impossible on the indie scale.
Yeah, and we had we had a loose into Doug through our DP.
Right.
Who he shot a
Doritos
commercial for a Super Bowl competition, right? And
Yeah.
Doug was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mike got the script to Doug through that connection, and then managed to get a meeting with Doug and sat down for your coffee date. Was how long?
Almost 3.5 hours.
Yeah, almost 3.5 hours with Doug Jones, and just talked about the project. And after that meeting, he was signed. So.
Yeah.
What's behind the door?
That's one of the more consistent jump moments.
That's
right.
In seeing this with audiences, which is always a real treat, because you tend to start second guessing everything in a horror movie.
It
by
really
the time
is.
You're done editing.
I imagine it's similar to a comedy where after you've seen it so many times, is this funny? Is this scary?
Yeah, you're just numb to it.
I've seen it 30 times now. Is it scary at all?
And that was kind of the deal, was like, when the cut was finished, it was like, I feel good about the cut. I feel like it's tight. I feel like we have the best performance moments. And no idea if it's frightening.
Yeah.
And still to this day, when we sit down and watch it with other people, I'm barely watching the movie, and I've got one eye trained on them the entire time.
Right, but back to that scare moment. I mean, there's something I think in our DNA that you're always kind of wondering what's behind the door.
Well, and what I like about that one too is that we've set up the nightmare scare and the jump scare and stuff, but that happens in broad daylight
while she's awake.
And interacting with another character on a joke, which is a trick you learn from Jaws. I learned from the Jaws commentary, actually.
Yeah.
Best place to put a scare is immediately following a joke.
That's right. At the end of a laugh.
Yeah, at the end of it's come down and
Chum
some of this shit, and then boom, shark.
Done.
Yeah.
And that's people are too busy laughing to process it immediately, and it and sets them off. So there are a few moments where we tried to do that here.
And I think it gets people on guard as well. Like,
Yeah.
they're not sure where the next scare could come from.
It could come anywhere at that point. Once you say it could come in the middle of a laugh,
Yeah.
no moment is safe for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Some very beautiful music by Ryan David Leake playing right now, and the evolution of his music for this was also an interesting story. Mike had found Ryan through MySpace, I believe, for another project.
Yeah.
Big shout out to MySpace.
Twitter,
heard of-
MySpace.
I've heard of this MySpace.
I found
I met
Ryan
Justin
on
through
AshleyMadison.com.
Friendster.
Yeah, and he
Never speak of that again.
he emailed some samples of Pachelbel's Canon, I think it was,
Yeah.
and I listened to his online reel and thought it was great, and emailed him back and said, I'm doing this horror thing. Would you be interested in that?
Maybe that's.
And what's interesting is there have been a few people we worked with on this that none of us ever spoke to or met.
Yeah.
We did
It's just nothing but email.
We did not meet Ryan until the cast and crew screening earlier this year.
Yeah, and we didn't meet Mark Sniffen. We've never met Mark.
Still haven't met Mark.
Right.
I, mean,
He
I don't know
lives in-
what his voice sounds like. I
Right.
mean, he's an email address that sent us our special effects.
Yeah,
And
Mark
in
Sniffen
North
is our VFX guy
Carolina-
whose work you're seeing in this film.
A North
all-
Carolina mailing address, as far as we know. I
I don't even know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he he's a college student in North Carolina, right?
Right.
I think so, or a recent grad.
Recent grad, and yeah,
But that's something else too that's very different about this landscape these days for independents is you can find talent anywhere in the country. You're not just limited to your city or to your class. I mean, it really is like go online. There are talented people all over the place.
And digital communication being what it is, you can have these entire work relationships
Yeah.
without having
Virtual.
ever been in the same room.
Which is bizarre.
It's bizarre when you think about
But
it
it
for
works
more than
out.
5 seconds.
And it's neat too because they're actually they're at such an arm's length from the project. They don't get that tunnel vision that you get being immersed in it.
yeah.
all,
I mean,
right?
Yeah.
you know,
It's valuable.
Yeah. They're way more objective.
micro budget filmmakers. One of our financiers, we never met face to face until after the
me on
project was
recording.
done.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm about to punch my
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, Rigby.
Trying to grab it, baby.
Rigby being the name of
Of the baby.
of
in
the
there.
baby that is actually inside of Courtney Bell right now.
I tweeted the day that Courtney gave birth, the final cast member of Absentia has arrived.
This is Scott Graham here as a psychiatrist, and on the wall in the background is the mirror from my short film Oculus, which Scott starred in, and actually Joe and I worked on together.
Right.
Back in 2005. So this is his
And I mean, I know that
his
maybe that
cameo,
was
which he was
something with
really
me, but
gracious about
We
about
knew to
doing. Just
expect
flew
something.
flew across the country to come for one day and
This.
do this for us, which is great.
Part of the, I mean,
Not this.
with our lower budget, something that especially came in handy was Joe, was the man to my left right now, and
We should really
his
talk to Joe right now.
Hey, me.
locations history as his work in that, and you're looking at the psychiatrist's office, and as she's running through the tunnel, these are things that would not have been possible without the efforts of one Mr. Joe Wicker.
Oh, you're too kind.
Turn it over to here.
And people too indies don't often, micro budget indies don't know what to do to approach locations. You know, how do you get permission, and what do you need permission for is another major question. People don't know. A lot of times people are breaking the law and they have no idea.
Okay.
Right.
And Joe's not going to tell you because it's his own secret.
But yeah, talk about locations from an independent producer point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in the location game for about 3 or so years, and you know, it's especially
Devastated.
difficult working on a micro budget movie because it always kind of comes down to money.
Because
But
I'm declaring
but on the whole, I mean, with this movie, after reading the script, it was clear that we needed that tunnel,
Like he was
you know,
just-
across from Mike's pad, and that just was the way it was, and so I needed to, you know, kind of run it through Glendale, and the people at the Glendale Permit Office were just terrific.
And the city of
And
Glendale
the city
itself.
of Glendale
yeah.
itself was, you know,
Yeah.
just,
We were
just
given
really,
police
really great.
officers for the 2
Yep.
days we shot in the tunnel.
Absolutely.
And they were great guys.
There's a whole bunch to that I didn't know
Yeah.
needed to be done. Like I remember watching Joe go door to door.
Yeah, it's a very involved process that I kind of keep hidden from, you know, as many people as possible, because if they really saw the kind of work that I did, they would probably say, Joe, you don't need to do that, but I do need to do that in order for the film to kind of happen.
I was
So,
very strategically making sure I
yeah.
had something else to do while Joe had to
Yeah.
go door to door.
So yeah, I mean, I had to go door to door to get permission from each of the neighbors in order to film, after hours. And when we did film, we had to have a police officer on set with a cruiser. Those are the Glendale
Officer Mike.
rules. Yeah, I mean, and they were terrific.
And we had to stop. I mean, the
Yeah.
tunnel is
people walk through that tunnel
It's a,
every day.
it's a pedestrian
throughway.
walk-through
Yeah.
tunnel, and there was,
Right.
There was some ITC we had to do with just intermittent traffic control. I mean, we had to kind of stop traffic for shots of Callie, walking across the street. I mean, it's just pretty involved. And,
Yeah.
And once you start blocking traffic, neighbors
Yeah.
start getting.
Even though
Yeah,
we had
exactly.
even though we had permission from the city to
Yeah.
do that, I had a couple of uncomfortable moments where I would be at the end of the tunnel, and I was also in the film playing a police detective, so I would be at the end of the tunnel in my wardrobe, dressed as a police officer,
I'm sorry.
and you'd have local people from Glendale trying to get to the tunnel. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't come through here. We're filming." They'll be like, "What? Are you a cop?"
No, they're not
And like they were
calling
giving me
them.
attitude about the fact that they couldn't go through their common throughway.
Yeah.
I'm not a cop, but
You
that
know.
gentleman in the
I play
cruiser
one of those.
behind you.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my favorite Justin quotes. Is just like, no, someone said, "Well, show me your permit," and Justin was like, well, "Tell you what, when you get to the other side, I want you to talk to the officer on duty, and he'll be happy to talk
Yeah.
to you about our
Yeah.
our permit."
Our purpose.
situation."
Yeah.
Or you could just ask Joe because he has plenty of permits in his pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and I remember that. I mean, you were always kind of running around with paperwork and a look of total exhaustion.
Yeah, it was an unenviable job.
Yeah.
That was James Flanagan just walking away from
Yeah.
the
Yep, my
ambulance.
younger brother there.
That's right.
You'll find out what's in the bag later.
God.
Yeah, but as always, I mean, the locations are another character in the film, and I
Do you
feel
need
like
anything else
Absolutely.
from the police?
Here we have another location.
yeah, exactly.
He's been missing.
Yeah, explain that. I mean, this is. I mean, it's an office building in Midtown Los Angeles.
I live about a block and a half away
Not
from
an
this
easy
building
place
now,
to get,
actually.
but how did we get this particular office?
This is actually a connection through Mr. Mike Flanagan
Yeah.
over there.
Well, and that's
So-
kind
So
of
what
part of the
happens now?
secret too.
File.
Is not only how do you go about through all the proper channels of finding locations. Who do you know that has something that you can use? Too?
Exactly.
And this was an attorney named Kelly Chang Rickert, who was an interview subject for my documentary American Marriage, and this is her office.
Right.
And I remember going there to interview her for the doc, and looking out the window and being like, "What a great view of L.A."
Right.
And we knew we needed a lawyer's office, and she was gracious enough to allow us to do it. And Joe kind of worked out all the particulars. And it's interesting it was interesting for me watching kind of what you did when we would arrive at a place, because care of the location was such a concern, and making sure everything was handled respectfully. And,
It is. I mean, I kind of walk a line. I mean, I definitely work for the production when I'm a location manager, but I also have the location itself in mind. And so I'm often kind of like the sheriff, on a set. I
Make
want
sure we police the trash.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I try and take care of the place, because ultimately I want to be able to come back, and I want us to be able to come back. And
I would like to talk about the
yeah.
Silverfish.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the
do it.
Silverfish for a second.
Okay, so you just saw, the hardest working actor in the movie,
yeah.
Silverfish. That was written into the script, that there's a silverfish in the sink, and it's to set up this scare.
Yeah.
Finding and catching a silverfish, it turns out, is very difficult.
Yeah.
And we had actually sought the advice of an insect wrangler at one point, who had warned us of the fact. It's like, well, it's actually it's a pretty difficult bug to catch,
And a very fragile bug.
yeah.
In general,
you
it'll
touch it
die.
with your fingers, and it just
it turns to dust.
pretty much.
Yeah, and so Joe and I actually went outside and we caught an earwig.
Right.
Yeah.
And we just ran in. It's like, we have an earwig. We don't have a silverfish. We have an earwig. That'll
This'll
work.
do.
Yeah. And we did a bunch of takes where we were the earwig wranglers.
Yeah.
I think I was shooting at that point, and you were wrangling the
I
earwig
was wrangling.
with what, like air or like, I don't know what you. I think you just used to
Like my finger and like a Q-tip.
Yeah, oh, a Q-tip.
Yeah,
It was
there was a Q-tip.
Yeah.
The earwig was a lot tougher than the silverfish.
earwig was
It
mad.
refused to go down
Earwigs
the
are a
sink.
sturdy insect.
Yeah.
Well, and
they're
after
kind
the
of a
fourth
badass.
take
They're
of
like-
us trying to wash it down the drain, and it just kept coming back out,
Yeah.
we were just like, "You win."
You win.
You win, Earwig.
So we let him go.
Throne. Yeah.
And then we caught, like, the entire cast and crew was on the lookout for Silverfish for weeks. We finally got, I think Katie Parker.
Katie Parker.
Yeah,
came
she
in
did,
and said,
actually.
I have it here. I have
a Silverfish.
I feel like
And,
this is
yeah.
the first sequence that I shot as an actor. This one happening right now.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I had, it was day 2 or day 3, and I had been around, as producer Morgan, but then had to go sit down in the makeup chair for a good 3 hours with the wonderful Amy Mills.
Yeah, Amy and Chris Mills at Silver Shamrock Labs did all of our makeup effects, and they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And great presences to have on set. They're really positive, wonderful people. Amy was pregnant at the time as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So she and Courtney had something in common. And then I went upstairs to, after being down with Amy for a while, went upstairs to go try and scare the crap out of Courtney for a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, removing my eyes.
Do you want to speak a little bit about what he actually says here?
You're letting me die. You're killing me. I know what you. I know about the
I know
baby.
about
I know
the
what you
baby, I know
did.
what you did.
I die
Yeah.
when you forget me.
When you forget me, I'm dead.
And which creepy stuff to hear. But one of the things that Scott McGuigan, who did our mix, put all sorts of really cool effects on that and made it so that you kind of pick up each word of that.
Right.
But in this kind of really unsettling kind
Jumbled
of
jigsaw puzzle type of way.
which is how I think it's cooler because it's more the way things like that, like those horrible thoughts, when they do run through your mind, they just kind of come at you that way. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
God bless you too, little nephew, niece.
There was an ultrasound
Interesting
scene.
side note, yeah, the ultrasound there is actually
That's Rigby.
Rigby.
That is actually, and there was an ultrasound scene in the original script that never, we just couldn't pull off.
Yeah. Now, at one point, I was going to bring the 5D in
That's
to
right.
Courtney's ultrasound.
To
the
an
point-
actual ultrasound.
Look at all those distressed trinkets.
Here's
Lots
the
of trinkets.
introduction of Justin Gordon.
Yep.
Yeah, the trinkets which Courtney found on eBay for the most part.
Yeah.
Gabby
and-
Chavez.
Yeah, my girlfriend Gabby Chavez.
Who's also our
Script
our
supervisor
super.
extraordinaire.
She had to go through and make them look old or bloody. I think she added hair, like there's like
Yeah.
clumps of hair and some pins and stuff. It's really
She
detailed.
really got into it.
And Gabby plays my dream girlfriend also at
Oh,
the
she does.
beginning of the
At
film.
about
and
like
we forgot to
minute
mention that.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joe's okay with that. We've talked about it.
I'm fine.
There's been some mediating involved, but
Very,
everybody's happy
very.
now.
We have a very open relationship.
It's true.
I remember that. We called it Indecent Proposal Day.
That's right.
Do you want to talk about this scene at all, Mike?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Sure. This scene was tricky because what you're seeing of Dave Levine was shot a week after what you're seeing of Gross.
Yeah.
We had initially shot him from the front, not profile, and the thing was at the wall behind him. I've got this home projector system that takes up most of that back wall. We had to cover it up because nothing's worse in a movie than seeing a giant movie screen in the background all the
And
time.
it's just not believable that Trisha Riley,
Has this giant movie, yeah.
Yeah.
So we covered it up with, rather than paint over it, because I did want to continue using it after the movie was done. We covered it up with a brown sheet,
Detective.
and you catch it
Hold
a
for
couple
the
times.
face?
Yeah.
boom, there it is. That's gold. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so we'd shot Dave head on, and we hadn't really found the character yet, and you could see the sheet behind him, and it just didn't work out. And that was one of those things we didn't have time for it. It was like we'd never have time to pick it up. But there were things that luckily we weren't happy with, and one bit of advice I'll always give is if you're not happy with something, even if you feel like you can't afford to get it,
Don't give up.
don't give up on trying to find a way to get it, because we kept trying to fit it into the day, and we couldn't, and we finally got it toward the end.
And you know, for me, I think it's supremely cool because for me, it seems like a seamless integration of. I mean, I would have never known that those scenes were shot completely apart.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
And I think
No.
it's and
And this is another one is reusing locations. Like where Courtney's on the phone here is again Kelly Chang Rickard's
just
office.
from a
Office.
completely
Yeah.
different
Office,
angle.
from a different angle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same desk. We rearranged it a bit and got rid of the view. And that was about it.
Yep.
Only watch this commentary if you've seen the movie once or twice, because we're ruining a lot.
No, well, I mean, I can't imagine anyone's watching this who hasn't
Yeah, I'm
seen
pretty
I'm
sure
kidding.
that your first viewing of the movie is like commentary.
I hope so.
it. If this is your first viewing of the movie,
Stop now.
yeah.
That's right.
No, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that way you don't even have to know what's going on. You're like, oh, I saw that movie. It's really talkative.
This is where we go into Arnold, and he starts describing that everything is on screen at the time.
So you're the first one to broach troll rape. You're the first one to
Do
start
weird
speaking
impressions.
a random.
That's right.
Morgan
Random
Peter
impressions.
Brown
Yeah,
goes from
this is
0
what
to
I
full
play.
Arnold in 34 minutes.
Conan the Barbarian.
And he's the one who's not drinking
Yeah, right?
What?
right now, this very moment.
What's that?
Wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, Rican water. But that death certificate, little piece of trivia, that is actually Michael Jackson's death certificate.
Whoa.
I don't know if you guys knew that.
It's all of the. I mean, it doesn't actually say Michael Jackson.
I didn't
It's
know.
been
That's what I
severely
changed.
doctored.
I had no idea that's what that was.
Well, I
yeah.
needed to find a death certificate to doctor as a prop, and that was the only one.
Public record.
Right.
That was a public record at the time. That was in full high res online.
Why
Yeah.
wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it was everywhere.
That's
And I needed
amazing.
one that had high enough resolution that we could print it out and make it look good.
Tonight.
So that was Michael Jackson's,
That's
and I just
amazing.
went through and changed all the information.
Right.
Except no, I left a few things. I left a few. I can't remember what, but there were
A few select teasers.
A few select things that it's like if you read it, you're like, wait, that's not Daniel. That's Michael Jackson.
But not the Michael Jackson we know. It's some Michael Jackson from like Iowa that we've never heard of before.
There's an example
Yeah.
of an extremely
Of course.
subtle.
Really
I
visual.
don't know what a Michael
done,
Jackson
Joe.
looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I've never even heard what a Michael Jackson could be.
We just had a very subtle visual effect there. There is a moving shadow in that tunnel shot. One of the nice little touches by Mark.
Yes.
It's really you barely see it, but that was definitely the intention of it.
Oh, I'd love to
This
talk
is-
about this.
Oh, what are you going to talk
Well,
about? The music?
yeah.
Oh, right. So what you're hearing right now is it's an indie rock band called Beazle, and they're doing the track that overlaid basically anytime Callie runs, it's Beazle playing.
The music coming out of her headphones.
Yeah.
But the actual score of the film was by a really talented composer named Ryan David Lake, and we initially had a completely different score from him than
Yeah.
what we actually went with.
Yeah, we had kind of this Friday Night Lights,
Explosions
in the Sky kind of
post-rock,
Very
instrumental
ethereal,
rock.
yeah.
and it
Yeah.
worked really well for like an indie drama.
It was beautiful.
Beautiful music,
Gorgeous.
Absolutely.
but it diffused all the tension of the movie.
It was after that first nightmare scare with Trisha when she wakes up. The feeling of the music was very. It's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay.
Comforting.
Yeah.
And kind of the decision was made. This is after he'd finished the whole score, and we were sitting on the cut, and we'd already moved it into mix, and we were like, it's done, and it just was bothering me
So
like
since
crazy.
the cat's sort of out of the bag,
And I remember calling Joe, and being like,
I was
the music is wrong, and
wondering
he was just
if
like,
you-
no, Mike. I know you've been editing for a while, and you're completely buried in it, and you're a little crazy right now. So let's just take a breath and say, what if it isn't? What if we don't need to go back and rescore? And I remember getting in touch with Ryan and just saying, bear with me, but I feel like your music is awesome. I feel like it's for a different movie.
okay.
And I think if we were to go back and do something very minimal, very, and just soak it with dread,
All right then. Don't get all
let's
upset.
try it.
No, I think
And
it's
Ryan
great.
was actually
It's
incredibly
fun,
gracious
right?
about it, and he was like, I don't know, but we'll give it a shot. I really like what I did, but what would you like? And I played for him the opening credits of John Carpenter's The
What about
Thing,
this? Maybe try this
which is a
for
score
20
that this
pounds
is
ago.
very very
Right.
similar to,
Maternity clothes only.
and he reacted to it very well, and gave me the new music, and I remember I plugged it in, and I felt like it was just
Yeah.
perfect. It was very unsettling. It
It's
never
very
let
simple.
you calm down.
Yeah, on my
It always felt like something was weird, and I remember I think you were the first one to see it, Joe.
ears.
Right, you came over to watch it off the edit bay,
Oh God.
and
Mom was
you were the one who was from the opening credits. We're like, nope, this is better.
Yeah. Far better.
And
Far
it,
better.
it was kind of like, damn it, it's better. Like this is it. We
Yep.
did it now. We're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
It was good. It ended up working out extremely effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the writing instinct to follow, Mike. So I'm
Something-
glad you did.
Something came to me in those quick, brief shots of the police station that you see Detective Mallory and Detective Lonergan there. On those faces on those missing posters, those were some of our Kickstarter
Right.
donators.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
One of the prizes we offered on Kickstarter was if you donate a certain amount, your face will appear on a missing poster that will be featured in the film.
One of them being my Aunt Jean, and one of them being
My
your
cousin Mackenzie.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to kind of involve other people in the movie and get them invested in it.
How long have you been trying to get her to
In
go
fact,
on?
you'll even see an actor coming up who also was one of our Kickstarter.
All right. Yeah,
donors.
you will soon.
Now, this scene from a production point of view, it fascinates me. Not this one, but one we're about to go into when they step outside.
Yeah.
it was one of our days where we had the permit, basically until sundown, and the sun is setting.
Yeah.
And we had 2 cameras that day by sheer luck.
And near where Mike lives, there is an AT&T truck parking lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of trucks sending out making
Right,
noise.
it's like a service center for AT&T wireless.
But the light is going right here. This is essentially a single take with 2 cameras running. And there was no real blocking. There's a giant tent full of Video Village and crew in the middle of this scene that's just barely out of frame in both of them.
And me standing in the middle of the street.
Morgan standing in the middle of an active street.
That's where the cop came in.
No cars stopped and asked what was wrong. Everybody drove by me, bloodied and beaten.
He'll be fine.
Yeah.
I had a lot of stairs.
But
a lot
we did have a lot of
wrecking.
people starting to gather on the street in front of their houses and watching, which is just people in the background. So we had to frame that out. But this just happened so fast, and it was one of those things where I felt at the time like we were screwed because we didn't have the. It was supposed to be like a 15 or 20 setup scene. It ended up being one setup scene essentially, where we just shot it in duration, just rolled. And it was like, keep rolling, back to 1, do it again while we have light.
We were gunslinging.
Just gunslinging, and it worked out.
It worked out really well.
Mostly because we had the 2. Yeah, the actors
The
nailed it.
performances were just all on point. So.
And we had 2 cameramen who were
Ruth.
good enough to, without any rehearsal or even knowing where they'd be standing, were able to capture it.
Yeah.
So
We're coming up to, well, this sequence right here is maybe my favorite edited sequence of the film. The original version of this sequence was very
linear.
Very linear.
Yeah, very linear.
And Mike was very kind of excited about what he had done with it, and he showed it to all of us, and it was just this beautiful overlap of everything, and you've got this such tremendous confliction of emotions, and we loved it from second one.
Yeah, and the actor
Mark
Mike was
Jablonski.
talking about was it's Mark, who is actually a doctor. He's a friend of Dave Levine's, who plays Detective Mallory, and
He wrote his own dialogue here.
Right.
The diagnosis, he wrote that on set.
Really did a fantastic job. I mean, he was there with us for one day.
but you know there was a
screenwriting credit.
there was a donation price point where I think it was if you donated like $300 or something into Kickstarter, you would get a walk-on role in the film, which we figured nobody would do.
Right. But he did.
But this friend of Dave's was like,
That's
and mostly because his friend Dave needed money to film a movie. He donated, and then he actually came out for the shoot,
He had a great time.
and he played the doctor, and he was great.
And that's the thing you worry with that when you kind of give away a part as a prize, that you're going to end up cutting that part.
Right.
You never know who you're going to get, and that's always the concern. Is like, I don't know anything about this guy. What's he going to do? If it doesn't work, I've got to cut it.
Yeah, and it was basically
And
like
he nailed it.
he took like the given circumstances of what had happened to Daniel. He'd been away. He'd been, buried underground, and he basically ran with it and created this diagnosis, which was spot on.
Yeah. Now this location too, Joe. You want to talk about Silver Dream Studios?
Yeah, it's Silver Dream Studios. It's in Orange County, in Laguna Niguel. However, they just closed down those studios and then they moved to Anaheim. So they're now up and running in Anaheim, California. Look up Roland if you're interested. He's got hospital sets, even our police station and interrogation room. We're
On the other
provided
side of
by-
that wall.
Yeah, on the other
Right
side of
around
that
the
wall. We're provided by Silver Dream Studios. So,
the monitor table was set up in that hospital hallway for when we were shooting all of the police stations.
Well, and that's something a lot of people don't think about when you talk about shooting on a stage. There's this immediate sense, at least with me, that it was like, well, that means I have to build a set, which changes everything. The idea of seeking out standing sets.
yeah.
standing hospital
Yeah.
and police station sets. I
Right.
mean,
Joe pitched that, and
It
what
just
a
made
find.
sense with our schedule because we didn't have a lot of time, and it was very fortunate that Silver Dream Studios had the sets that we needed.
Yeah,
you
we
know,
had
it
the
was
sets. We had an insanely frenetic
and
period of like we got to these beautiful standing sets, but we had no way to furnish them.
sure.
And it was like
I want to talk about this.
yeah.
did you
yes,
talk
all
about
right.
the me peeing
Oh, yeah,
myself?
but we're
out
gonna-
of
I wanna
this
hear
in
you
the
talk
previous-
about it.
Yeah, talk about it.
It's a turkey baster with some silicone
Yep.
tubing, I believe, wrapped and stuffed into my boxer briefs. And
Yep, I made that.
Well, and the shot that's in the film was done long after we wrapped.
long after, about a month, and because the reason being that most khaki pants we discovered are waterproofed.
Ooh.
So no stain.
Our
Yeah,
wardrobe mistress bought a pair of khaki pants that had waterproofing.
And I had my own khaki pants that I brought as a backup, and both of them had waterproofing. And it was
then
like, I guess this is a common thing.
We pumped all this stuff through Morgan's
down my leg.
and for no, we were just like, what's wrong? And Morgan's just like, this is very uncomfortable. I'm standing in the middle of a public street.
It's just rolling off the. It wasn't causing a stain. It was just rolling off of the fabric.
Plus, if you remember, the turkey baster in the pants was a little too flattering as well.
Well,
If you recall.
We got one take
that's no turkey baster, Joe.
where the stain, the pea stain, started to appear about 2 inches above his kneecap.
That's right.
And it was just like, wow.
Hey, Dirk.
Yeah.
Trish has been missing him for a reason.
That is one lucky
why
troll.
would a creature ever let him go?
Yeah. No wonder it's coming back for him. My God. Oh, good times.
I know you guys talked about this a little bit on the other commentary, but this is this timeline of Daniel's was played with a bit, and we had to lose some scenes of mine in
Well,
particular.
yeah, and that's always, we did talk about this on the other one, but I'm curious to talk about it with you.
Sure.
Was we had written these additional scenes of Daniel kind of reacclimating himself to his former life.
Yeah.
And
Daniel?
then they were cut.
Right.
And it's one of those phone calls you got to make, that kind of like calling Ryan was pretty scary initially, because not only is it like, hey, actor, I've cut a lot of your scenes. It's like, hey, producer, I've cut a lot of your scenes.
Well, it was, I was able to, and maybe the fact that being a producer as well helped me see the larger picture, which is that
How you feeling, Daniel?
it was comforting, similar to Ryan's music. It was comforting to see more of Daniel. It was comforting in a way that we didn't want it to be, to learn more about him and to get more of a glimpse of him, to make him less of a mystery.
And we talked about it too, like with the mystery. Like the analogy I loved was, you're the shark in Jaws.
Right.
What if the shark in Jaws made you eggs?
That's he's speaking literally. I
scene,
did make eggs.
With the scene where he made eggs for
Poorly, I might add.
for Trisha. But keeping him more mysterious, I think, worked out for the best. And that's
And I'm not good with the talking either, so the less lines, the better. I said it.
And he's not
Anyway.
cooking, so it's all good.
7
Yeah.
years on the street.
So yeah, that was definitely
Yeah.
and that's on this DVD actually.
Yeah.
Those deleted scenes.
There's a lot
So
of
you can-
people.
can
It
see
was
them in all
it was
their
an
glory.
interesting thing to be able to do
Are
back
you
and
telling
forth
me
and
you
to
know
have
you ate
a larger
breakfast
picture of the
yesterday?
thing
A
while
liar.
still being,
A liar.
how would I have felt if I was just an actor in the scene, I think I still would have understood, but knowing the big picture of the film and knowing and wanting the character to come off in the best way possible, I think at the end of the day helped me deal with the fact that we lost a decent little chunk of me.
Well, this is a rough stretch of the movie anyway. It's dicey from a script point of view because since I think at 40 minutes when you reappeared, there's a long stretch here where absolutely nothing supernatural happens.
Right.
There are no scares. There's no suspenseful turns. There's nothing. This is all essentially character work.
Right.
Plot.
But you do have me being Daniel upstairs.
Yeah.
He is the elephant in the room. He is the what
Yeah.
No one wants to no one knows where he's been.
Yeah.
And it's a different type of tension. It is not that supernatural, but it is that sort of really awful, terrible. What do you do?
Yeah.
When you've moved on already, and suddenly the thing you've moved on from is back.
Hi.
Indeed. This is also one of those things you never catch. Or well, no, we did catch it, but things you don't think about. Katie's wearing her shirt inside out in this scene,
Right.
Because it was a logo on.
There was a clearance issue.
Yeah, it was a logo. It was a
singer.
Yeah, it was a musician whose image was on the cover of her shirt or on the front of her shirt.
And Joe caught it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being Joe Wicker, I was like, that's not gonna work. And
Turn it inside out.
So we did the only thing we could do at the time was just turn it inside out.
Yeah, it's still it looks fine.
And like all these pictures that you're seeing on the walls back there, you just saw a few like the.
Those
all
are
of those
all-
were cleared images that you procured.
Exactly. Yeah.
From an artist friend.
Yeah, I worked with an art director on a few features, Kirsten Larson, who provided me with photographs that were taken by her now husband, and we went ahead and blew them up and framed them and put them all around the apartment, and they're completely cleared and they look great.
And that's kind of the thing, is a lot of people will think, like, how do I clear this movie poster that I have on my wall? And how do I clear this piece of art I have on my wall? Which is not the way to approach it. It's who do I know that
will
would
clear
be
it.
very excited
Right.
to have their stuff featured.
Right.
Yes.
And you can do that with art, with music, because, I mean, your connection to Beazle.
Right, Beazle, who is, anytime Kitty Parker as Callie has the headphones on, that's my friend's band, and they were like, "Yeah, do it. Put us in the movie. That's awesome."
Yeah, it's very important, I think, to just actively seek out creative friends, or even not friends, strangers. The internet opens you wide up to people who are dying to have exposure.
Right.
Michael Jackson died.
This is another neatly edited little sequence because if we kept the camera on, if we didn't cut away at the end of the scene, Courtney Bell got a nosebleed.
She talks about that in the cast commentary.
Yeah, it was, and there was this moment where I was still in character as Daniel. She pulls away from me and she's bleeding from the nose, and it's suddenly like, oh, oh God, I hurt you, and
I actually remember Mike and I running up the stairs, after we called cut, like, oh God, is she okay?
Yeah.
the pregnant woman is bleeding
Oh, the
from
pregnant
the
a couple of
bleeding.
times we were scared for her
Let's rush
safety.
to her rescue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was fine. I was.
We'll get
she just knocked her nose on
to
her.
pregnancy safety later on in the film, but
Yeah. There's a few.
there's
close
one
calls.
particular scene that I had with Courtney that I was very uncomfortable about, but we'll get to that.
That is one of the few scenes in the movie that's actually lit. You can see a light built in the top
Hey.
right corner there. Yeah.
Well, that's novelty, micro budget friends.
Oh my gosh.
Lights. We had one or two.
Yeah, I mean,
Hopefully you'll have
beautiful
more.
thing about the 5D is.
Does the sun count as a light?
I mean, the beautiful thing about the 5D is it sucks up all the light, and the horrible thing about the 5D is it sucks up every light.
Yeah.
Right, so it was almost like we were
Look at that. Like
overlaying.
you can see that the sky is so bright.
Right, this is at 2 in the morning.
This is at 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning. It was.
This is a lot. I
There
remember
was
this
no
night.
brightness outside.
We all remember this night.
And you're crammed in the back seat, Mike?
Me and Rustin and DP are sitting in the back. It's a 2-door. It's a Solara.
Right.
Crammed back there.
It's a Solara.
It's a Solara.
You can say that with pride.
Not a lot of
It's
headroom back
a
there.
previously owned Solara
Yeah.
from the year 2000. But and I think you guys are all inside trying to be very quiet because sound was inside recording.
That's right.
Sound was
we
inside
were,
recording.
We were
It was
hearing
also,
the whole thing.
4 a.m. on an extremely long day. We're all a little punchy.
Right.
No, this is a sequence that, for me, kind of takes the movie back to
the-
being a horror movie.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Pretty abruptly.
Yeah.
And it's also we're almost at the hour point. It's the second time that I think there's supposed to be kind of a shift
Right.
in the perceived reality of the movie. 'Cause,
Just when you think you figured this movie out.
yeah. Now we're gonna break out the monster, which we should talk about.
Right.
Right.
Well, and this is also
You traded with
one of the original things before we started filming the film. Actually, we did a teaser trailer,
Yeah.
Daniel,
and this scene harkens back to that
think
teaser
you should go
trailer.
back into
A
your
good
room
portion of the
and wait
teaser
for
trailer was
Trisha.
me, and there was a speech, which was eventually trimmed down much more, about talking about the mystery and things taking you away.
Which was condensed to I think 2 sentences.
That's right.
It was a 2-page
and then another
sequence.
part of
Yeah.
it was given to Katie Parker in another scene. But this sequence and that it kind of builds off of that teaser trailer.
This is one of my favorite scenes to watch with an audience too, because when right there when it's suddenly it's not just him or her seeing it, but this
Right.
is an experience they're sharing.
Right.
Yeah.
Changes things for people, and the audience right about here when the
Right there
yeah.
when the legs go past.
Great simple digital visual effects from Mark Sniffen.
and everything changes because even people that weren't sure what they were seeing
Right.
are now like, well, I'm in a horror movie.
There's something
The monster movie.
that we play with a lot in this film, which is the unreliable narrator.
Yes.
And
One of my favorite.
how reliable is the character of Callie with the history that she has and everything she tells you can't quite take at face value.
I remember shooting this scene 15, 16 times
That's right.
for the shot of the shower curtain. bursting out.
We
Yeah,
had
we
the
couldn't
shot.
get it right.
We had the shot in the teaser trailer, and I believe the first time we did it, which was like 3 months prior to filming of the movie.
It was perfect.
Yeah,
it was perfect. We did it maybe 2 times, and on the
Couldn't
night
do it again.
of this,
Courtney took a couple turns back there.
Then Drew
Justin.
Shirley.
I did.
and
I mean,
Justin.
on the I did the teaser, right? The teaser trailer.
Oh yeah, you did the teaser.
I did the teaser, and we just figured, oh, we'll just do what you did last time.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it. And then Courtney came in. We're like, oh, maybe if somebody shorter does it.
But that's more about it's not about what you have financially, because I mean it's one of the biggest scares of the movie, and it's someone standing behind the curtain who just at the right moment just hits it with their fist.
And it's a beautiful, relatable fear too. Everybody's got a shower curtain.
Yeah, but
You know.
and it's what can you do with nothing? What can you do with what you have? And
What are the things? And other movies have taken advantage of this. What are those universal fears that everybody has? And being in the house alone with something that is making things move. It's, little twitches of things that could be nothing and could be something.
yeah, and I think our biggest scare moments in this movie are the low tech scares.
Yeah.
Which is something, for a lot of micro budget filmmakers, it's kind of like, oh, how do we afford the effect, or how do we design the creature? How do we stretch each dollar? And sometimes it's the other way.
Right.
Go. It's like how do you
It's
how do you do the least amount?
It's the making the horror out of the everyday, I think, that ends up frightening people the most.
Yeah.
There was also the edit of this version as to when we cut away.
But that was a big
That
topic. Changed a few times.
Yeah, it changed it a few times. At one point we saw Callie, Katie's character, wake up from the knock. Or actually, no, we cut away of her just walking into the bathroom. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Then we went into the car.
The shower curtain scare didn't happen before the car. It happened after the car at one point.
Yeah.
Works so much better the way that it is.
It really does. We like it. And
Yeah.
we love how you're just kind of in there with the car with them stuck, not knowing if Callie's dead or alive.
Yeah.
The girls are so good here. They're so raw. Really.
It was a difficult scene to shoot. Having fun
There's
with
the
furniture.
the blanket covering the
Right.
movie screen.
You think about all the roles that you do on this. It's like, you'll see a shot later on of the destroyed apartment, living room again.
Right.
And the electrical light, like the lamps seem to be going in and out of,
Flickering.
They're flickering. And it was, I'm laying behind a couch, flicking the lamp.
Yeah.
Just low tech.
You know,
Here's some of our
completely
lowest
low
tech
Yeah, exactly.
right here. Right, is this that thing that goes by.
That's
Right.
That was a
and-
leather
and
jacket.
this.
That's me flicking the leather jacket.
Yeah.
And you wearing the leather
And me
jacket.
wearing the leather jacket, doing
For
like
that
a weird,
cresting
like,
thing, yeah.
Right.
And clearly the fingers on the shoulder are digital.
Yeah, and people holding my legs off camera as I grip onto the bars.
and they did like this great stuff of the low tech of like, that's a leather jacket going in a frame, but then like they, digitized it and like added some magic, whatever they do. to
And
it,
I mean, and we were talking about gunslinging. This sequence in particular was done right at the end of a night. And
We
it
almost didn't do it.
We almost didn't do it. Mike was almost like talked into it.
Yeah, I had to fight tooth and nail to get it done. Yeah,
When
I'm-
the clock
there's
struck
me
3
flicking the
a.m.,
lamp.
We were
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, we've just been shooting
This is
10
me-
hours. Do we have the stamina to pull this off?
And this is me standing on an apple box on a ladder.
Yeah,
And
up against
then-
the ceiling.
And then doing a drop. We had tried it 3 different ways. We had tried it
We tried holding
me
Morgan
up.
up. Myself and the AD tried to hold Morgan up and then drop him,
It
or
just
let him
wasn't
low.
working.
And, we were going to try to let him down gently and then speed up the
Yeah.
frame. We couldn't get it right.
Just didn't look natural.
And so I just bent at the waist and just quickly and ducked out. That's a yoga move.
Yeah. And then this is all just
That's me being dragged through a tunnel.
That's me and the AD dragging Morgan.
But we didn't have the shot.
I have a floor mat.
Right, we didn't have the
wrapped
shot. Go
around
into
my
that.
midsection.
We got the scene except for those shots of him being dragged. We never got it. And I think we had wrapped for the night.
Yes.
And
I know how
we were
that
drinking.
sounds, but I swear to you, I
Yeah.
swear to you, I
And it was like, what I'd love to get?
Let's drag Morgan.
Let's
through
drag
that
Morgan.
Drag
to the
him
tunnel.
again.
And then we went back out and got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wrapped a like a floor mat, like a braided floor mat around my midsection, put it underneath my t-shirt, and taped it to my pants so it didn't come up, and gave it a shot.
And this is more examples of how to stretch money. Like we knew we had 3 cop uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we that's Adriana Lombari, our wardrobe.
Back there, actually wearing an outfit which is like 4 or 5 sizes too big for her.
Well, and not actually an official cop outfit. Like it's like a black button-up shirt, and she put the badge on, but she's out of focus, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And then we used the exact same costume she just saw here.
Right.
Yeah.
To give the illusion that we've got 5 or 6.
The house full of police
cops, and
officers.
then, another
Just
one. We've got
frame
more
out their
cops. It's the
faces.
same two official outfits and one kind of jerry-rigged one.
It feels like you have this larger presence.
And all of this wardrobe comes from our own. Like that's my hoodie. That's my shirt.
What you have in your closet is going to be.
It's
right.
Yeah. I know. Oh my God, are you wearing that right now?
No, I'm actually not.
You're wearing a hoodie.
I am wearing a hoodie. I am partial to hoodies. But I'm
It's a
not wearing
slightly different hoodie.
Yeah, I actually don't know where that hoodie is anymore.
Are you kidding?
No.
It's at Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yes, exactly. It's
Planet
on a wax.
Hollywood
It's on a wax
Drive.
museum statue of me.
Wait a second. Is your vision imperfect?
What are you
those
talking
glasses
about?
yours?
Those
is
aren't
crazy.
real glasses.
Those are not my glasses.
Yeah, and this is that kind of thing where it's like you just try to get the illusion of cops in the background. It's like we've got Justin's badge catching light over Dave's shoulder. We've got 2 badges behind Courtney.
Right.
Just to kind of, even though we only had the 3 extras.
Yeah, like assert that presence.
We couldn't show their faces.
Yeah.
But because we just saw them in the living room. But,
Yeah.
that cop belt stance, 2 hands gripping the belt, people just do that.
Yeah.
Like the second you put on the uniform, it's just like that's
it's
what
inherent.
people do.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's this scene coming up, which we shot
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
very late into the night.
Yeah. No, it's we
right.
talked about this quite a bit on the cast.
Okay.
The girls have very strong negative opinions of the scene.
Really?
Oh yeah, the girls hate the scene.
Really?
They felt like they were rushed. They don't like their performances. They don't like the way they're framed.
Oh, they were rushed.
Oh yeah.
We were rushing.
Katie doesn't like how wide the camera is. on her.
I don't disagree with any of the things
I don't
you just
either.
mentioned.
Well, we didn't have time.
Yeah, we just didn't have time.
Whatever. What happened then, Trisha?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither one of them is happy with the scene.
Yeah, I think.
It's another beautiful
Yeah, I think.
cutaway
This
sequence. The what ifs.
Yeah.
Adds a layer to it.
You know what? I don't know, but
Yeah.
I fucking heard
We were
that
shouting.
Yeah.
We were having a shouting scene.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 3 a.m. We're
3 a.m.
like, try to shout, but
Shout quietly.
The neighbors.
There was some discussion early on too about what do we show in the lunchbox, and
Right.
do we ever try to really get explicit about her drug use or show anything? But it's
Right.
that kind of thing where once you accept that that's what's in the lunchbox, anything we show you is going to look like something we threw together,
Yeah.
because we didn't have access to anything that would look
Right.
convincing.
Yeah.
So,
None of us being hardcore drug addicts.
Imagination.
yeah.
What would it look like from somebody else? Well, but neither is Trisha, and it's Trisha's fantasy, imagination. Fantasy doesn't sound like the right word.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's clearly using, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's important to know what.
No, I don't think it's necessarily important.
Yes. Now, some of this stuff with her doing the research and some of those nighttime scenes, I think she's actually using the director of photography's laptop.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then
I
we
think
we
they're-
inserted later website pages that we created that you
That we
created.
shot off the edit system.
Yeah.
I think originally it was scripted that she was researching in the library, and then we're like,
Can't afford a
don't have
library.
time for a library.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. I
To
don't
shoot
even-
that
Let's
up.
just
I
do-
don't
I
know.
don't even. Yeah, I don't remember.
Well,
Let's
who
do
goes to the
laptop on
library
a
to
bed.
research anymore? That's so.
Yeah, it's a little,
old-fashioned.
People without an internet connection.
right.
No, we enter another stretch here where essentially nothing supernatural occurs almost toward the end of the film.
The sequence is one of the big reasons why I sort of love this film and why and when Mitch and Ruth show up, Daniel's parents, because when you show this movie to certain people early on in the process, we were asked, a couple of people told us, yeah, you don't need that sequence at all, and it was just a flat disagreement from. It was always sort of like, I disagree. I feel like
I like
we
that
do.
scene.
Yeah,
I feel like it brings it crashing back into reality,
Right.
and suddenly you have to deal with the people that are in your lives.
Walter Lambert.
True.
Lived
Now,
3
this
doors
stuff
down from
here,
us, went missing in
which was all
1995,
created
walking
kind of
to work.
later.
Guess which way? Left behind a son who
The
still
sequence
lives
of
in Spain. His dad was taken away by
going through the
military.
history of the
They
tunnel
declared Walter dead in 2002.
was something else that on
I
the
ran
page is,
into
there's a
him
lot
just
of
last
words, and
week.
Katie was
Guess
really
where? Which
intimidated
would
by
just be,
basically putting on a
except he's not the
3-page
only one,
monologue
not
on
even
her own.
close.
Right.
5 others from this neighborhood just in the
And
last
once
100
again, despite my assurances that this would be one of those critical scenes we really worked on,
Right, the
it
freeway was
was
built in the
the
early
thing we only had
50s.
time for 2
Before then,
takes.
and I'm not kidding, it was a
And,
natural sand.
and no coverage.
They built a
You know,
footbridge over it.
this is the angle.
People went missing. 1928.
Never could really
Charles
punch in on her,
Ashford
and
We had to
goes
get very
fetch water
efficient.
From his family
Yeah.
well, crosses the footbridge,
which was rough on the
goes looking
actors.
for him,
Yeah.
no sign,
And that's kind of
footprints in the dirt
kind of the
lead
thing going
halfway
into
up
these
to the
movies.
well.
It's like you know
Not
you're not
enough?
going to have the time. You always like to think you're
students
going to,
made the
but never
covers
do.
of the LA Times.
And there
after
needs
the
to-
missing
pick up
and
the
what
slack.
they call the
Right,
series
there needs to be, as
Underground
actors,
Hills,
you
right
know,
over there,
it's
but emerged
difficult to
through a
know
long
this when you
tunnel in the
start,
valley.
but
They couldn't find the
you
tunnel,
got to do your
students
homework.
couldn't listen,
When
this
you
is
show up
important.
to
said it
shoot,
was
you better be
under the
ready.
city,
You know,
not
you don't want to
underground,
be,
but
and
like
when you're working
an
on a lower
underworld.
budget film, you don't get 4
No,
takes to
look,
warm into it. You know,
1968, David
be
Stone.
ready to roll. You know, be ready to
Goes
go,
to a
because if
party
your first
3
take is
blocks
great,
from
you
here,
might
starts
not get
acting
another one.
strangely, wanders into his neighbor's yard, doesn't know where
yeah.
he's going or what he's doing. All he can say is that it's after him.
Callie, when the mind can't process a horrifying
And
situation,
one of your co-stars
You know,
is
did
5
you know
months
that there are
pregnant also. I mean,
109,000
there
active
can be
missing
any
persons
number of
cases in this country?
distractions.
Guess how
Absolutely.
many disappeared in
Yeah.
tunnels?
the mind creates
None of this made it any easier. That's for sure.
Though in a weird way,
So
Courtney's
there are
pregnancy
myths, legends,
helped in some
folklore.
ways.
It's easier
It
to
gave us a
imagine
hard
horrifying
start date.
fantasy
Yeah.
than to accept
And there
the
was
truth.
kind of a,
Trisha,
well,
every
we're going to be
culture in the
shooting by
history
this
of our
date one way or
species has had
another.
mythology about creatures
And
that
we were
spirit
forced to
people
make
away,
some
that
decisions that
take them into
thankfully
some
worked
unreal
out.
underworld,
But, you know,
enslave
make some
them,
decisions that we
brutalize
wouldn't
them,
necessarily have had to make in the
To
time
accept
allotted.
how stupid.
Should we talk a little about
how
after the
simple
shoot? I mean,
reality
that's
is.
kind of weird to do on a
Scandinavian
commentary track,
troll
but
legends, the
as long as we're talking about the production,
the
like talk about
banshee,
post
the
and,
Wendigo.
Sure.
There's
and
a common
marketing.
thread
I
to
mean,
all of
yeah.
this. They're
Yeah.
just
So we wrapped the movie
Yeah.
in early July.
Yeah.
Went right into post.
dark matter.
Started cutting. Came together very
Everything
quickly.
is made of
You know, we did
atoms, and atoms
the scoring, we
burst
did the
into
sound,
space. How
the
is
sound work, the
anything
visual
worth
effects
selling?
came in last.
Yeah.
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 And then we started doing the
Things go
festival
missing
thing,
in this
and
neighborhood,
one of the things we've
and have
learned
for as
that
long as history has recorded it.
learned in a
Those
major
things
way actually
turn up in one place.
is that the order of submission to film festivals actually matters a lot more than I ever thought it did. I'd
Right.
done 3 features and a short before this that had done their tour on the festival circuit.
And world premiere is very important to certain festivals.
And not just world, but regional premieres.
Right.
Well, just in
California
general,
premiere,
and
US
how
premiere.
other festivals and distributors and the market looks at your film from an independent level, they're going to look at it based on which festivals you've been to.
Right.
And, you know, if Festival A hears that you've already been to Festival B,
Yeah, they might reject you, right? It actually has. I now know overtly that we were rejected from festivals that loved the film and were excited to program it, based on where we played.
This is Connie Ventris and Ian Gregory playing my parents here, 2 actors that I had previously worked with. And talking a quick note about casting, I mean, this was Justin and I knew from day one as producers, we just knew so many talented actors, and just wanted to give a quick shout out to both these.
I mean, that's the point of Fallback Plan. I mean, we were formed because we know so many talented people who
We're
we
not
just wanna work
doing,
with.
just want to work with out in LA.
we want to work
so,
with and foster their work and, you know,
Connie and I
collaborate.
had done a play together 2 years prior, and Ian Gregory and I met on an AT&T print ad, as a matter of fact.
And this is a tough thing to pitch to an actor too. It's like, hey, you want to come and do the
Yeah.
wordless scene where you just cry?
Right,
They
we
were
just
both-
mourn uncontrollably.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to do that?
It was, but they
Thank
came
you.
in. They were there
Beautiful.
for about 4 hours, and it was a tough scene, but a gorgeous, wonderful shoot, and they did a great
It
job.
really is.
Yeah.
And it's still one of my favorite scenes.
I agree.
Now this sequence here, which was essentially the second part of Doug Jones' Day.
Right.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the Daniel reappearance. I think we lucked out so much here because we were again racing the sun. We were out of time. We had 2 cameras rolling. We had all these extras. We had Doug crumpled into a bloody ball in front of the.
Look at those cop cars.
Yeah, that was a fun day. Joe, Justin, and I got to drive cop cars to set at 6 in the morning.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah, rented 3 picture vehicle police cars. There are plenty of rental houses around the Los Angeles area.
Those sequences I mentioned earlier where, worrying about the pregnant actress running towards a crime scene.
These are all people that we know in this crowd, and well, a couple of them are people from the neighborhood who wandered over.
Just wandered over.
And if it didn't mess up continuity, we're like, "Do you want to be in it?" They're like, "Yeah." Like, sign this release and stand right there.
But this is one of those kind of things where the actors were given very little.
Yeah.
And you guys just had to kind of do it because we didn't have time for anything else, and we caught what we caught. Hoped we got the scene. In fact, had forgotten.
Talk about James.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten
James rushing
this part of the scene. Remember, we called a wrap on the scene, and then we're like, oh wait, James.
Yeah, James.
And then he comes in. The cops were told he would try to get past them, but had no idea he'd be that quick. Yeah.
That is real struggling right
so
there.
Heartbreaking. Mike, I remember watching The Monitor with you, and we got a giant lump in our respective throats after watching this. And
That's
just like, one take James.
That's Otter the dog.
That did it,
In this scene, the interrogation of Jamie was written the night before. We were in the hotel where we were staying at, remember? Before we shot at Silverfish.
Yeah, you wrote the night before. We didn't see it until we got to set the day of.
That's pretty good.
Because there was this whole other scene that took place here where it was this Law and Order scene where Dave shows up and he's like, "Yep, that's Jamie Lambert, Walter's son. Says Dad went missing." It was just like this.
It was extremely convenient wrapping up of Jamie's time.
It's like it was the end of an episode of Dragnet. It really just hurt.
Dum-dum.
And so this was designed to replace it, to get the information out that he'd been leaving the pets for his dad, but to not do it in a, well, everybody, this is what happened kind of way. It's not like the movie was over.
And to Mike's credit, I mean, on the fly, we got what is this wonderful personal scene that's that gets the information across, but still in a very heartbreaking way.
And this is my first work as a DP.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Mike had to
Rustin
swoop in and
Cerveny,
save the day.
wonderful Rustin, our director of photography. His infant son had a stomach bug, and so that of course meant Rustin got a stomach bug. And after shooting one setup of one scene on the day,
he actually collapsed, and I happened to be
caught the
directly
camera.
behind him at the time, and I caught him and the camera, and then immediately trying to figure out what was wrong with him, and it turned out that he did have that stomach bug, and then he had to leave, and we were left with
not right
the
away.
dilemma. Yeah.
First he sat outside, and we went. I remember I went with, I don't know, was it Drew or you, Justin? I can't remember. But 2 of us went over to Costco to get him new clothes.
Yeah, that was Drew.
That was Drew. He had thrown up on the clothes.
Yeah,
So we went to buy.
I was trying to arrange a car home.
Right.
and there was just
Right, we figured, yeah. And then
massive-
when you returned from Costco, I was like, "Hey, Mike, welcome back.
Here's
you're
Rustin's
gonna-
clean clothes.
Here's Rustin's clean clothes."
Oh,
and
he's
you're-
not gonna
and
be able to
Are
wear
you
it.
ready to shoot the rest of this, Mike? And then
and we only had the one day at the location.
and
so.
then-
right.
shot it,
It was
yeah.
really
So
backs against the wall, and
so fortunately your camera experience came in handy. And,
2 of the biggest
and-
scenes in the movie.
And you nailed it. So
Yeah.
again,
Oh, you guys.
Though Mike learned what an ordeal Rustin had been going through with that shoulder.
The camera was weighted to keep it
Right.
steady, but we're talking like 20 pounds
Right.
Yeah.
of
Serious.
weight added to the
Counterweight.
back.
Yeah.
And I put it on my shoulder, and for a minute I was like, it wasn't so bad. It feels good and sturdy. After about 3 hours,
Yeah.
I was in so much pain.
Right.
right.
And just my neck and Levine was making fun of me actually on the other commentary because he was just like, no, I just remember that at a certain point you just devolved beyond speech, and you communicated in a series of grunts and heavy breathing.
And every take ended when Mike was shooting. Every take ended with just the camera lolling off to one
Yeah,
side.
it skewed because I was collapsing slowly
Became
under the way.
heavy
Yeah.
Dutch shots, like you were in the villain's lair of the old Batman show.
Nice.
Wow.
So yeah, it was like directing wasn't enough, writing wasn't enough, editing wasn't enough.
No,
you know
he
what?
had to shoot for.
No, but everybody's
Shoot.
wearing I mean, says Joe, who was
Yeah.
producer, location manager, and
Right.
craft
Craft
service.
services.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Everyone
wearing
had
8 hats.
Too many hats on
This
there.
is
Yeah.
true.
Too many hats. But that's
and-
what you do when you want to,
Get it
when you
done.
believe in something, you want to
Gotta
get it
step
done.
up and get it done, and I think everybody rose to the occasion. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why spend time looking for somebody else when you could be doing it yourself?
Right.
This is
I
amazing.
still have a hard time adhering to that rule.
This is an amazing scene between the two girls, though.
It is.
Was a
The
hard one to
reconciliation.
shoot. It
Yeah.
was
I know.
you know, I mean,
I am.
they gave it 100% every time. I mean,
This is their first take right here, actually.
yeah,
Mm.
one long take all the way through from the front.
Yeah, and they just hit it. And that's kind of that thing, is like if you I don't want to say luck out, because this is actors,
Right.
you know, doing what they do, but
Sure.
when this wasn't intended to be an Aster take, we were going to go in and cover a lot of this, but
Right.
they just did it, and it was like, well, we move on, we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
We
like
got a
if
little
you
bit of
kill it-
coverage.
If you kill it, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, gotta use it.
Do one for safety and be like, all right.
And I think
We
we, did
had a
one for
little-
safety, and it wasn't.
We had a
wasn't
little bit of that with the previous scene with myself and Callie reading the book right before I'm abducted again. We had shot a lot of other coverage on me from different angles, and then it was just a matter of I had been in a place for long enough that I just started weeping,
Yeah.
and Mike and Rustin being on the spot just called it, and got a whole new angle on the spot and read it and shot it.
Yeah.
That was one of the great things about the 5D also is just its flexibility, and it's small and you ready to go.
Oh, Morgan.
What?
If you watch Callie yawn. Oh, no, we cut it out.
Yeah.
There's a yawn. One of my favorite Morgan moments as a producer at the Monitor, where we had a 10-minute fight over the nature of her yawn.
It was not a fight.
We had an artistic discussion.
Kids.
It was not a fight. It was.
And then there's no yawn in the film.
That's right.
They
It
cut it
was
all
a
out.
very heavy moment,
Yeah.
and it was almost a comedically large yawn from Katie Parker walking on screen, and so we gave birth to the term casual yawn.
Joe, did you want to?
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about that zoom in this moment here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it zooms in.
Pushing the camera into the-
pushing the camera
into
in.
nothing.
Yeah, into
Yeah.
nothingness, and then surprise. And
That sound.
Well, and that's a sequence I enjoyed just because that fear of the dark that everybody.
Yeah.
You're talking about
Right.
universal fear.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one that people will mention.
Universal fear, and also the fact that like when you see the creature come at the camera, it's still you go from complete darkness
Yeah.
to just a hint of what this thing is.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally like 10 frames of
Yeah.
Not
time.
even, I think it's 5 frames.
Wow.
And that's something else I learned from a commentary track actually from Alien. Tom Skerritt's
Yeah.
death scene,
Right.
which people remember as being so horrible when he's in the docks and he turns.
You
and
see
it.
that thing reaching for him.
And people remember it as this crazy moment, but if you actually go back and watch it, it's 5 frames.
Wow. Just lit
He
by
turns,
that
it's
light.
5 frames, and it's someone in a suit, and they lift their head.
Yeah.
That's all that happens, but you fill in the rest.
Yeah.
And that's kind of something that we had to embrace for budgetary reasons, but would have done kind of a similar thing even if we had more money. This idea that
These
making
movies,
the audience fill it in themselves.
I mean, these movies that we love that scare us, what do they have in common? And, Alien or Jaws, or that we've talked about already.
Yeah.
It's allowing the audience to create that fear for themselves.
Yeah. And we kind of
yeah, and in this case, it's like the audience is creating the dialogue for themselves as well. I mean, and there's they're filling.
This was an improvised speech by Katie Parker. It was. We knew it was going to be silent, but it was just sort of tell us the story, and we just filmed it.
There are a few moments like that. Actually, building up to that, back to the Ruth and Mitch crying parent
Right.
sequence.
Yeah.
What you're not seeing is the 3.5-minute improvised monologue that Courtney came up with.
Right.
What did it
Of
to
just-
actually explain to them that their son had come back and is gone again.
Right.
To get them into that place, and it's like there was a lot of really interesting stuff that the actors kind of came up with on their own that was never intended to be in the movie and isn't.
We're gonna need to test your
But
But we see the
got us
results
there.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and question you a lot.
Them actors are clever.
Right
Damn
now,
actors.
you're only a person of interest. You have any plans on leaving town soon?
No.
Never stopped her before. Okay. Now we're going to continue, but before we get to the meat of it all,
Yeah, and this is one that always gets kind of grown in the.
we
Yeah.
need to file a missing persons report.
Ooh.
Just
the unfair kind of.
the horror of the mundane.
Yeah.
Suddenly you have to do paperwork
Yeah,
that
if-
explains this terrible thing that's happened.
Yeah, you thought you saw the boogeyman. Great. Can
Yeah.
you write that down for me?
Yeah. And just know that it will be looked at and go into a file.
And forgotten.
This was another rented vehicle that we greatly enjoyed having.
it actually, my brother who watched this thought, that is a cool car.
It is
So you know what?
That
it
is
read.
a cool
It
car.
is
A cool
that
car
is
got
a
red.
Dodge
There
Charger
you go.
detective vehicle.
Enjoyed that car.
I bet you did. It was a hard thing to return.
It was
It
Justin's.
was
It
very
was
hard
Justin's
to return.
Batmobile for a few days, for a day or so.
All right, this has nothing to do with the movie. Anyway,
And then here we kind of entered another scary sequence for me because we were basically down to a single character who isn't going to talk
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So this was a lot of pressure on making sure that the visuals were going to work out, but also on Ryan to fill it with music that carried you along.
And it's a fine line to walk of giving the audience enough so that they know what's going on, but also leaving them in the dark just enough so they don't know exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this when she walks out of the house of this, walks out of the door of this apartment, you don't quite know what she looks like. She's ready to kick some ass, and you don't quite know what she's going out there to do until she says that word,
Right.
and it's terrible, and you
yeah.
Yeah.
so it's letting them in enough,
Right.
but not.
But I mean, it's this is gonna sound horribly trite, but I think we sometimes forget that this is a visual medium, and
Yeah.
so much of the story can be told without saying a damn word.
Your
And
audience is so much smarter.
this entire sequence, for me, really speaks true to that, and it's
And that's
powerful stuff.
Well, and that's something too. I mean, the audience is so much smarter.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of movies,
so much smarter than most
Yeah.
people give them credit for.
people are like, well, we got to make sure everybody understands it, so let's dumb it down.
Right.
And that's never a good idea, I think.
No, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I think people appreciate when you're like, I know you're not dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I respect your intelligence as a human being.
This is shot out of the window of a car.
Yeah, it's a car where
I was driving.
Yes, you were.
Rustin was shooting. Not sure that any of it was usable at the time.
Right.
But I guess it is.
No, we would call cut, and he would just kind of religiously say, I don't know if any of it's in focus. on principle, I'm going to say, I don't know, so you can't blame me later.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
And that beautiful lighting in the tunnel, that's all there by
Yeah,
City of Glendale.
That was
Thank
gold
you,
mine. That was such
City
a
of
happy
Glendale.
accident. Thanks, City of Glendale. Yes,
It's such a
exactly.
cinematic tunnel you've built.
We didn't add a thing.
Yeah.
And
Why
that's
this
just
hasn't
the
been used in other
5D.
films.
Yeah. It's under the 134 in Glendale. The 134 is one of the major
And
freeways.
we were there first, so
Yeah.
good luck.
That's right, they've repainted it now.
That's right. It does not look.
It doesn't look like this anymore.
Yeah. It's all
It will.
graffitied up again.
Oh, yeah, it'll get back. Yeah,
Give it
but-
like 10 minutes.
I'm sure
Massive gang territory.
that'll have that urine smell back very shortly.
I remember it well.
No, and some of this stuff was really difficult too because we've got our crew just past the entrance of the tunnel in
Right.
the distance. We've got the crew in the sound cart and everything kind
And
of out
hiding
there.
cords.
Hiding the cords by running them along the seams of the tunnel, kind of
Right.
down the corners.
Yeah.
Shots like this, a lot of it was Katie either completely alone in the tunnel, or Katie and Rustin alone, because he wanted to be able to run around her completely,
Right.
spin the camera in both directions because it gets very dizzying later here,
Yeah.
which meant all of us had to be outside, and that we couldn't necessarily run a tether to the monitor.
Yeah.
Right.
For some of these shots, we
Your
had no
monitor
idea what
was-
we were actually getting.
Yeah. So a lot of this had to be like shoot as much as you can,
Yeah.
with the hope that it'll cut. And we didn't know that it would until we got into edit. But, yeah, shooting blind happens.
This is a great sound design moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say that the testament to a strong sound design.
absolutely.
Just this creation of this, and the tunnel providing some excellent sounds itself. When a truck would go over, there's a sound when Callie actually first walks into the tunnel. Hear this low moan noise,
Yeah,
which is
it's a truck
actually
going by.
that was a natural sound of a truck driving over.
Now, this is another thing that people didn't necessarily understand on the first viewings, and some people still. This goes by actually. The mechanics of this particular train that goes wrong, and the fact that it's like clearly Trisha is killed. You know, the unborn baby is presented
Right
for trade.
there.
And there it is.
Yeah. Which our prop is incredibly detailed. And we
Boy,
didn't-
was it?
Yeah, too detailed.
Too detailed.
too detailed, and we knew we could never show it.
Yeah.
You know,
Explicitly.
and,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean, we had to sell it on Katie's reaction more than anything else.
Yeah.
And but yeah, like that's a risk too, because we've spent so much time trying to get people to care about these characters,
Right.
Yeah.
then to just kind of casually kill them
Yeah.
was a point of a lot of discussion in the script stage.
Yeah.
But there's that idea that so often in horror movies, you pit these average, ordinary people against this extraordinary force, and
Yeah.
they somehow win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that always rings a little untrue to me.
Yeah, it's like, how can you ever beat?
Yeah,
Unseen,
all-knowing-
timeless evil.
Yeah.
yeah, you're outmatched.
You
Yeah.
can't do it.
And so that was kind of the thing. It's like, well, because we didn't know how this was going to go, and it's like, since we don't have any studio or focus group or anything like that putting pressure on us, let's go for it
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just try to be true to what we thought should happen, which is that they clearly could never have escaped.
We have a callback of a lot of different visuals there too that we just saw. The open door of the apartment,
Yeah.
always talking about lock the door, lock the door.
Well, still, even when Callie's shoe lands outside the tunnel, there's still, when you focus on the shoe, there's still, if you notice, in the foreground, a little bit of blood left over from Walter Lambert.
Yeah.
Which to me, I'm just like, oh, I don't know.
that shot of-
that always affects me whenever I see that.
And it's how the film begins, is the shot of a tunnel, and there's a shoe in front of the tunnel. I mean, and it's...
And it was a complete accident. It was just,
Yeah.
Well, this is it's a great
Just
moment
because.
for you, especially Justin.
I mean, I know you don't need me to tell you this, but
I know.
that was a good
we'll
scene.
keep the case open.
Dave killed it.
You did.
Indefinitely.
You guys
In a
both
good
know.
way, I should
No, yeah, no, it's like,
Yeah, no,
you
it's-
want to talk about like,
yeah, but
you know, when you're in acting school, you always talk about like, oh, a great scene partner can really
It's about what we know.
up your game, and like Dave destroyed
know.
this scene, and
Well, and this is another one too that we didn't really realize how this was going to play out visually, and it was all these little
Lived
vignette
down the
moments
street.
Right.
that are shot.
yeah, actually,
Right,
in
whenever we can
the
get
original script, it was never meant to be
It's
an
all a matter of
actual
time.
on-camera scene between Dave and I.
Animals to.
You have all these the things you dare to think,
Yeah, or don't dare to think.
or don't dare.
And that was kind of the other big question mark as we kind of circled this thing. It's like, how do we end it? I mean, they're gone. The characters we've come to care about, hopefully, are gone.
We've killed both protagonists.
Yeah. and we're left with who, let's be honest, two cops who so far have not been very good at their jobs. I mean, they're up against
The supernatural.
the supernatural.
Pretty
and they don't know it.
Well, you
inappropriately
have one
involved.
cop, Mallory, who's intimately involved with one of the
Yeah. Which Dave Levine on the other track is really funny because he's like, his downfall is his unprofessionalism.
right. Well, I mean, yeah, kind of. And then you have Lonergan, who just
From
is
the
like,
start.
you're talking about Boogeyman, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
a
some
lot
of this
of-
stuff was all shot like way after production.
Right.
Actual production.
A lot of those pickups,
Yeah.
a lot of the Daniel stuff from the very, very beginning, that was all shot like a month later.
Just because I can't think of the scenario.
There was a shot we went past already where it's
Riley,
Trisha looking out at this lake.
Yes.
Very beautiful shot, sunset.
No credit card.
That was
no vehicle.
the shot before the movie was shot.
That's
Actually,
right.
we were on a road trip to Tahoe and had the Rebel T2I and jumped out at sunset by that lake to just grab the shot off the highway.
Was that Monolake?
I can't remember. It was about halfway between the
Did you
two.
go up 395?
I don't
Why are we talking about that?
remember. What do you think, audience?
This is the Western Geography of the United States commentary track.
Yeah,
I was
right.
imagine.
I know, exactly. If you enjoy the Desert Sierra,
We also did a bunch of different things with this ending. How to make this not goofy. And
this is actually
This
one of
is the
my.
end.
This is actually might be my favorite thing in the film.
Really?
But no, really, because of how it was done.
I remember Dave. We did like a 5-minute take of Dave standing there and tearing up, and of course we only used a little bit, but. This last image was always the last image of the script. Was to have the hand on
Over the shoulder.
or the
Yeah.
Inhuman
whatever
on the
appendage.
shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And we actually didn't know that Mike and Rustin had done it.
Yeah, Mike, tell us
until-
about what that actually was.
Yeah, it's 2 twigs we picked up off the ground.
Yeah.
2 seconds before we shot it, and
just sitting there.
because we had thought maybe composite it in, do it digitally, and just
Yeah.
grab the twigs.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
puppeted the twigs,
And then
I
two
showed
days,
the guys.
2 days
yeah.
later, when Mike was cutting it, we were leaning over his shoulder, and we both went, "What is that?"
Yeah, no, it's still one of the most arresting images from the film for me, and the fact that it was 2 twigs off of the ground
Made
which,
us
you know,
jump.
Low tech.
We've since nicknamed the creature Twiggy Jacket because it was made with 2 twigs and then a leather jacket.
And we should
That's
probably
right.
sign off because the movie's over.
That's
Yeah,
right.
movie's
Yeah,
over.
that's the movie.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so
for,
much. We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope you could bear to listen to us talk. So thanks so much.
And yeah, go out and make movies.
Yeah.
We live in a time
Indeed.
that it's easier to do than ever before.
Do what
So,
you love. It's
yeah.
easier than you think.
And hey, we're actors looking for work, Justin and myself. So